Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to another episode of NFL Fantasy Matchup. For those who are expecting us to be there on Monday and Tuesday, I apologize that we weren't there because of my bad Wi-Fi connection. But now we're back to preview Week 3. And as always, Jed and Jimmy are here as we look at Week 3 games. We look at Jed's picks. We're going to play a little true and false today, and we're going to talk a little bit about who you need to start and sit. So welcome, everyone.
Good morning.
Morning. Welcome back.
Thank you. Hey, I'm going to start because we have a lot to cover with all of the things I want to look at. I want to first look at some of the news and notes, especially some of the injuries. So, Jed, I'll start. No, actually, you know what, Jim, I'll start with you because we were just talking about that. Christian McCaffrey in Thursday Night Football has a hamstring injury, and usually we know when it comes to hamstring injury with running backs, it may be probably a multi-week injury. He was ruled out the game early in the first quarter after 3 rushing plays. Thoughts on that as well as his replacement?
Well, I think as we know, whenever they pull a hamstring and they pull him out so fast, it's never a good thing. So I'm expecting McCaffrey to be out a few weeks. At least he's not out and placed on the IR for the next 6 weeks, but we'll find out here in a little bit. I was telling the guys the thing I was frustrated about is earlier that day, I was sitting there looking at some of the waiver wire pickups, and Chuba Hubbard was there. And there was a part of me that just asked myself, should I pick him up? Because you never know what's going to happen to McCaffrey or any of these other running backs. And it goes back to this rule that ESPN calls the James White rule, right? So you don't pick up guys like James White, who's just going to give you 6 to 10 points, but you want to pick up guys like Alexander Madison, you want to pick up guys like Chuba Hubbard, because you know if the number one running back goes down, these guys are going to vault up to the number one running back and get you some really good fantasy points. And so that's what happened. And so I was kicking myself when I saw that.
Jed, we saw this last year when Mike Davis, and it actually got him a huge contract over Atlanta. Jed, does that make you, look, as we look back at the number one draft pick last year, we were talking about Dalvin Cook or we were talking about Christian McCaffrey. He does have an injury concern.
Yeah, definitely. I think you do. These are commonly called handcuffs, right? Like if for some of your star running backs, you have to have the handcuff. Alexander Madison is one. You got AJ Dillon up with Aaron Jones in Green Bay. You've got, now Hubbard. But it's a tough call because I think you have to know for sure. For example, in Tennessee with Derrick Henry, I don't even know who the backup is because the backup has to be someone who you think can come in and produce at the same level. So I think in this case, Hubbard, I do think is going to be not exactly the same, especially in the passing game. But there's so much there for him to get that it definitely would have been wise to do that. The other thing I'll mention is that this was the Thursday night game. And so that strategy, Jimmy said, of picking up the backup just for the game, you could actually, for Thursday, you can actually do that. You pick it up just for the game, and then you drop him after the game, assuming your pick is okay. And
yeah, you know what? That's fine. Because I had Chuba. I was looking at Chuba Hubbard or Henry Ruggs, right? And so I was like, Ruggs is going to have a better season. So I picked up Ruggs. I was like, should have gone after Hubbard. Partly because running backs are such hard players to come by that having a good number one, even for a few weeks, is gold.
Yeah, you
Jed,
have to
let
have
me
the
go over
foresight,
to you.
it's worth it. Go ahead.
Jed, let me go over to you. Darrell Henderson is dealing with the rib cartilage issues. They're playing Tampa Bay. There's a good chance he'll probably be out. Are you starting Sony Michel?
I am not starting Sony Michel. I'm expecting this to be a shootout through the air. I think if the Rams are going to stay with Tampa, they're going to have to pass a lot. I expect a lot of fireworks out of this one. So I guess, if you're hoping for maybe a goal line carry or something for Sony Michel, then I think that's potentially worth it. But that's that's the only reason I'd be going there.
But we know who we're going to be starting. Cooper Kupp, because that little Cooper Kupp, he's doing great this year.
Yeah, you definitely hit that one, Jimmy, and I missed that one for sure. I thought Robert Woods would be more the beneficiary there, but Matt Stafford has looked great. I was high on Stafford, and I'm so happy for him. I hope that this continues. I like to do my picks, and I debated picking the Rams to upset Tampa, but man, Tampa just looks so hot right now. So I think it's going to be a tough one. They're 6.5 point favorites, so it's a pretty big spread.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Jim, Carson Wentz has 2 sprained ankles, and they're probably going to play a backup quarterback. Are you even looking at Michael Pittman? No matter what, you're starting Jonathan Taylor. What about Michael Pittman?
I'm hesitant for now. Like I think Jacob Eason, no one really knows who he is. I think if Wentz was starting, I would start Pittman. But if there's another better player out there, really, I'm trying to decide, do I start Pittman or Jacoby Myers? And I'm trying to decide between that. And right now I'm leaning towards Jacoby Myers versus Pittman.
Got it. Hey, let me go through a couple of these things real fast. Amari Cooper has bruised his ribs. Most likely he will play in week 3. Antonio Brown has tested positive for COVID-19, so he is out most likely for the game. Deontay Johnson avoided a major knee injury, but it's looking better, but not great, and he's doubtful for week 3. I know we're going to talk about matchups a little bit here, Jed, but Deontay Johnson, Chase Claypool, Juju Schuster, who do you like better?
I'm starting Juju. I've been playing Juju, and it's been interesting. He's been leading in targets, so that's always a good sign for the first 2 games. But this is going to be an interesting game. And actually, you know what? I'm a little bit of foreshadowing here, but I'm actually I'm not high on Pittsburgh. I think Pittsburgh is in some trouble. I think these 2 games they've looked pretty bad, and so if you can help it, I don't know that I'd start any of those guys.
What was telling? There was an article the other day where they were showing how Roethlisberger went down and was sacked. And I don't know if you saw that, but none of his offensive linemen picked him up. And I forgot which one. Ryan, I forgot who it is from ESPN was saying that's a telling sign. Either they are not committed to their quarterback or they just haven't gelled, right? Because he says when your quarterback goes down like that, your offensive lineman needs to defend you. And I just feel like there's just this disconnect right now between Roethlisberger and the rest of the team, and it's showing on the field as well, too.
Yeah, I agree. I think the bottom line is Roethlisberger just looks really old. This just shows you it's hard to beat Tom Brady. Roethlisberger it looks like he fell off of a cliff. He doesn't have the arm strength. I think the team knows it, that he can't carry them anymore. And so he's lost the team a bit. I want to throw out one quick stat I read. I don't know if you guys heard this, but Tom Brady, there's a good chance he will have thrown more touchdown passes as a 40-year-old in his 40s than in his 30s. That is just insane. Like, I cannot believe that stat, but this guy is superhuman.
The caveat they did give, though, I think that's a great stat. The caveat they did give is the fact that in his 40s, the league has become such a passing league that if you think back to when he was in his 20s, it was more running game, right? Which quite honestly, Pittsburgh, if we go back to the Steelers, I wish the Steelers would embrace that. Just feed it into your running back and figure out how to use your receivers. Right now, they're still trying to be a pass-heavy team and running second when they need to flip that around.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And the other thing I was going to say, Tommy, is I feel like, we've said that the first 2 weeks of the season are when things are a little bit, you can't really trust what you see. Now that we're going into week 3, you start to see some trends. And we can start, maybe we'll do a segment later, but we can start talking about some of the surprising trends this season. One I'll just mention, for example, Pittsburgh, that drop off. I think that is an interesting one. I think it potentially is a trend. Another is Las Vegas. I think the Raiders have been stronger than I expected. Houston was a surprise. Jacksonville, not as good as I think we were expecting.
Sam Darnold last night with the Carolina. He might be a real thing, right?
Oh, Carolina is a huge surprise. 3-0. If not for McCaffrey going down, it would be some serious hype there. So, and then Washington, of course, with the injury not being as great as we were hoping to. So there's all these trends. In week 3, you should be starting to think about those because now they're getting real. Now you can start banking on some of those trends you're seeing.
Totally, yeah.
Like, for instance, the first week trend was Antonio Brown, who caught all of those yards from Tom Brady and kind of dropped off, and now he has COVID. And you saw Mike Evans really struggled, and you were wondering, well, is Antonio Brown going to be your second receiver? And there you go in terms of now Mike Evans shows that he's still there as well, too. Hey, Josh Jacobs most likely was questionable for the team. As a result, Kenyon Drake will probably start. Jim, let me actually go with you. With the 49ers, Trey Sermon is dealing with a concussion. Kyle Shanahan says that Trey Sermon should be good to go for playing on Sunday, as well as Elijah Mitchell, who is actually had a shoulder injury, so they should be back. Are you looking at Elijah Mitchell to start? And I know you're trying to trade for Trey Sermon. What do you think about those?
Jed, that's what I've been doing this week. Is I've been going after Trey Sermon, and because I was like, look, he's got a potential to do pretty well. He might be down right now, so between him and also the running back Williams in Denver, I've been going after those two because I feel like long term they're going to be good. By the way, remember my friend Chris Rothert who joined us? He wanted me to remind you guys that he was the one who told you guys about Elijah Mitchell when we were doing that mock draft early on. So
but I'm not big on Mitchell. Of the two, I would take Sermon over Mitchell all day long. And I totally agree with your strategy.
Yeah.
And I was just going to say that is now that we're thinking about trends, you can also be thinking about buy low candidates. So yes, Christian McCaffrey going down is sad. For some of you, he becomes a target. Make a potential trade offer to get him onto your team if you think he's going to come back healthy after 4 weeks. That could blow your team up.
There's a couple players out there who are low right now who I think if you go after them, they're going to benefit in the long run. So, for instance, I saw in one of the leagues, I don't know which one I got left, someone just dumped Joe Burrows. And if you need a backup quarterback, I pick him up, because I was like, he's going to, even if it doesn't register in wins from a yardage standpoint, he's going to be throwing that ball.
Yeah. ESPN was mentioning one person that is a good trade candidate is A.J. Brown. He had 2 terrible games, and people are wondering, is it Julio Jones or A.J. Brown? If you want to make a trade offer for A.J. Brown, because he cannot be this bad all year long.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, same with Metcalf. Metcalf hasn't had a great start to the season, but I'm not giving up on Metcalf. I think he's coming back big time.
Jarvis Landry plays on IR. He will miss at least 3 games. Derek Carr is playing. Dalvin Cook. Hey, Dalvin Cook there's a good chance for some of you guys who are listening, there's a chance that he may miss the game, but watch with that and make sure that you have Madison.
Alexander Madison.
No.
I'd be shocked. That's the one thing about Dalvin Cook is he has played through so many injuries. The guy is just he's a machine. Like if you look back on his history, I don't know, it's very rare for him to miss games. I think he missed 2, I want to say last season. So I'm thinking he's going to play, but you gotta watch the news closely.
Got it. And then Tua is out. Andy Dalton out. Josh Fields makes his first start of the season. And that is it for our news and notes. Let me actually go with Jed's picks. From that point on, I want to go through the matchups really quickly today and then go through some of our artist segments. So, Jed, I'm going to turn to you.
Yeah, sure. So, last week we went 2-0. I think we did pretty good, actually. We should keep track of this too, guys. So we picked the Titans and got that right, and picked the Packers was the lock and got that right. So for this week, the upset that I'm going to go with is the Bengals over the Steelers. We talked about the Steelers' problems. This is actually in Heinz Field, so this is quite a task for Cincinnati. The Steelers are 3-point favorites, which just basically means they're home favorites. But I like the Bengals here. I think the Bengals defense has really improved. I think they will be harassing Ben all day, and I have a good feeling that the Bengals are going to take this one. So get Joe Burrow and your players in there. The other one I'm going to pick is I was thinking about I was leaning back to Seattle, actually. I was thinking about that, but I'm going to go with the Raiders. We just talked about the Raiders. They're only 4-point favorites against the Dolphins. I think they will cover that spread pretty easily, and so I'm taking the Raiders over the Dolphins.
Raiders over Dolphins. Very good. Do you think it's going to be the running game, or do you think Derek Carr is going to have a great game?
Either. I think the Dolphins are in disarray without Tua there. I think it's just going to be a little bit of confusion on their side. So, it's great that Carr is going to potentially be there. One thing I'll mention, you talked about Josh Jacobs being out and Kenyon Drake stepping in. Just recognize the last time he did not then take on like number 1 running back duties. They basically kept him in the same role as a third down back or catch back. Don't think that he's going to get this huge production because he didn't take over Jacobs' duties.
Can I tell you a couple of things? I do think from a fantasy standpoint, you're going to see a big game again from the Cardinals and Kyler Murray because they're playing the Jaguars this week, and you know that the Jaguars are not doing well. I also expect a pretty good game again from Daniel Jones. And so I was telling Tommy the other day, if they see Daniel Jones on the waiver wire, I would pick him up because I think actually going back to one of the trends for the season, I actually think Daniel Jones is going to have a pretty good fantasy season, and I think he's going to do pretty well this week.
Yeah, I was going to say, Tommy, I think you were 1 year too early on Jones. I think this season, he's been looking pretty good, mainly because of his legs. His passing accuracy is still pretty atrocious, like still in the 50%. But you're right. As far as fantasy points, again, if you don't have a top 10 quarterback, top 12 quarterback, and you need someone, I think you could do pretty good with Jones. And remember, our bye weeks are coming up in a couple of weeks, so we're going to start hitting those bye week replacements, and I think Jones is someone you could target.
And the one person that you talked about that I don't trust, Jameis Winston. I thought after the first week he was doing great, but he's playing the Patriots this week. I don't think he's going to do anything this week. I can see them getting to the point where at some point they're going to be like, forget Jameis Winston. We're going to go with somebody else.
Yeah, you might be right. That's why we said don't jump too quick after one game, week 1, week 2, you got to see. I think the jury's still out. He had a tough week last week. Let's see how he does against New England. There's just so much offense potential in New Orleans. I hate to give up too early on those guys.
Yeah.
Hey, let's go through the matchups as well, too, for this coming week 3. And so I'm going to throw each one of you guys a matchup, and I'll have each one of you comment on it. Jim, I'll start with you with the 12 o'clock games. Colts against Titans. Give me your thoughts on that.
Colts against Titans. I think Titans are going to end up winning. I can see this potentially being a game where Ryan Tannehill gets back into fantasy relevance and actually has a pretty good game with A.J. Brown and Julio Jones. I just think they're going to dominate over the Colts this week. I'm not really high on the Colts, especially with Carson Wentz out.
And also with Jonathan Taylor, you know what? He's been average. He hasn't been really, really good, but he's been average as well, too. Jed, Falcons versus Giants. You were just talking about Daniel Jones, Falcons versus Giants.
Yeah, this is, an interesting one. I think, if you're looking to Daniel Jones to get you some points, they're 3-point favorites, I think. And the Falcons that's been another surprise, 0-2, looking pretty bad. The offense has just not been there. So I think Daniel Jones is a playable. Saquon Barkley. I think on the Falcons side, I still believe in Pitts because of the targets. He's been leading in targets, starting to pick up a little bit. I think he improved from week 1 to week 2. So potentially some there. But yeah, I could see this. This is not a great game in my opinion. I don't know that I'd be looking for a lot in terms of points wise from either of these teams.
Jed, talk to me about the two running backs, Saquon Barkley and Mike Davis. Is Mike Davis still a every week starter?
Oh, that's a good one. I don't think so. I really don't. Even though he's the starter in Atlanta, the points aren't there. I keep saying this over and over, guys, but if you have a team that can't score more than 20 points a game, there's only like 2 or 3 touchdowns for you to potentially try to get. And touchdowns is really what puts you over the top. You can get all the yardage, but you got to get touchdowns. And so if the offense isn't scoring, you're in a world of hurt. And so that's my concern with both these teams. That's why I've never drafted Saquon Barkley.
Well, the other thing, too, is if you look at Atlanta, last week, Cordell Patterson, the former Chicago Bear, he had 20 fantasy points, and he was evenly split with Mike Davis. So for a lot of people, they were picking up Cordell Patterson versus Mike Davis. I still think that between Ridley and Pitts, they're going to turn it around because I think one of the arguments right now is that Atlanta is working with the first-year offensive coordinator, and they're learning how to work together. So maybe these first couple of games were just, okay, we're going to try to figure this thing out, and then we're going to do well in midseason. That's what I'm hoping for right now.
Yeah, Jim, let's go over to Chargers versus Chiefs. Everyone seems to love it. Mike Williams these days. He's been exceptionally popular. Talk to me about Chargers versus Chiefs.
Okay, so last week we anticipated a big offensive production from both Dallas as well as San Diego. And I actually think that we could have had it. Herbert actually could have had 2 to 3 more touchdowns if there wasn't penalties or drop balls. And so I'm hoping that this week they would have solved this problem, because Justin Herbert is one of my quarterback in most of my leagues, and I need him to start doing well. But with that said, Mike Williams is having a great year. He is injury prone, and so there's a part of me that says, okay, how long is this going to last, and when he's going to get injured? But I do expect them to be trying to catch up. How about this? I think Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, Tyreek Hill is going to have a great year. Justin Herbert, Keenan Allen, all of those guys are going to have to keep up with them offensively. I still would not start Pollard from the Chiefs, though, because I just don't think he's doing well right now.
Yeah, the Chiefs are 6.5-point favorites here. And remember, they're coming off that 1-point loss to Baltimore. I think they're going to come out gangbusters. I think they're going to kill the Chargers. I think they're mad. I think the Chargers, though, can get a lot of points in garbage time. Trash pickup, just basically, like you said, Jimmy's trying to stay close. They're going to be throwing the ball a lot. I would even still say, even though they're going to be throwing a lot, I think Eckler is still fine with pass catching out of the backfield. So I would get all of my Chargers and Chiefs in for this game.
Have you guys seen how bad Hilaire is doing? I think he's 6 points in each of the first 2 fantasy games. I was like, I mean, he was drafted pretty high too. So
I've always stayed away from the Kansas City backs. No, any of the running backs in Kansas City. I just think it's a passing team, and so that's where you want to get your points.
Well, remember Priest Holmes.
All right, before we go to the next game,
that was before they switched over.
Yeah.
Well, before we go to the next game, this is actually a good segment. There was a trade made in our league the three of us disagreed on, right? My wife traded Patrick Mahomes, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and Chris Carson, and got back Jamar Chase, Damien Harris, Russell Wilson. Give me your arguments for it, against it. What did you guys think of that trade?
I didn't like it.
I
didn't like it because I thought that she went down from Mahomes to Russell Wilson, and I thought that Chris Carson to Damien Harris and Jamar Chase. I thought Chris Carson was better than both of those as well. Now, the one potential argument was this is a dynasty league, and so the idea of getting Jamar Chase and as a keeper, I think that's the only saving grace of that trade. Otherwise, for this season only, I thought it was pretty lopsided.
Yeah. Same with me. I mean, but with the dynasty league, right? Let's just say even you're comparing Russell Wilson to Patrick Mahomes. Russell Wilson is towards the midpoint or towards the end of his career. And I feel like he's got a couple more years left, and he's not going to be one of the elite quarterbacks anymore. You've got Patrick Mahomes, who is just beginning at the height of his career and his productivity. And from a dynasty standpoint, I was like, I just didn't feel like that was fair. There was no way in your right mind you would want to trade a Russell Wilson for Patrick Mahomes. Now, I know you added the Jamar Chase to it as well, too, but I just don't feel like that really makes it up for it. And I felt like Claire and Chris Carson was a wash.
See, I don't think they're a wash.
Right.
I think Carson is better than Hilaire, like we just said.
In a dynasty, yeah. But in a dynasty, because in a dynasty league, Carson, I mean, he's got a couple more years. Hilaire, I just didn't think it was that good. So for me, that's why I put him as a wash.
All right, here's my argument for that, right? Russell Wilson, if you look at that and Patrick Mahomes, last year, total score, Mahomes was 15 points higher in total fantasy points from Russell Wilson. So that's one. Number two, if you do lose it in Dynasty, there are a lot of quarterbacks that are sitting out there all the time that could, not as good Mahomes, but still could give you. Chris Carson, the concern that I was telling her is, there's sometimes Chris Carson gets injured quite a lot. He seems to be doing really, really well. And then in week 7, he's gone. And so you can't always count on him for the last 2 seasons because I've had him for the last 3 seasons. So suddenly you have Jamar Chase, who's your number 1 running back, Damien Harris, who I feel like is actually going to be your bell cow lead running back, and Russell Wilson, that actually is above normal. And if he's not good in a couple of years, go get rid of him because there's probably going to be a whole bunch of other quarterbacks sitting out there. So that was my argument for that.
Yeah, but here's the thing. If you have a dynasty league, don't you want Patrick Mahomes as one of your foundational players? Like, I don't want to
No.
every year be trying to decide which quarterback do I want to go on. I want to know that every week I've got 30 points coming from my quarterback position.
And my argument is with that one, I can find a quarterback any day of the week. I mean, that's my argument. That because I don't hold the quarterbacks very highly.
Yeah. So, okay. Jed, you could solve something for us. Tommy and I have been discussing a trade between Damien Harris and Tony Pollard. I won't tell you who's got who. Who would you pick? Damien Harris or Tony Pollard?
Ooh, that's a tough one. So do you guys know that Tony Pollard has outproduced Zeke Elliott for the season? He has more fantasy points than Zeke Elliott, which is interesting to me. I think of those two, I probably would say Pollard is the better of those two, even though technically Harris is the number one and Pollard is the number two. I just think in New England, there's so much variability with the running backs, and we still don't know what's happening with Mac Jones. It's just not as consistent. Whereas in Dallas, if that offense can get going and Pollard stays, even if he just stays in the role he has right now, you're seeing that he's getting points out of that. And if that production continues or improves a little bit, or if something happens to Zeke, then like you said, so I think the upside is higher on Pollard than for Harris.
Yeah. So Tommy's got,
because the argument all the time is that eventually Ezekiel Elliott earns way too much money. All right, they're going to cut him sooner or later. So you're going to have to promote Tony Pollard. But for this year only, I actually think Damien Harris is actually going to be your primary ball carrier and get the majority of the carries.
well, Tommy's got Pollard, and I've got Harris, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, you guys should. I mean, you can trade it because for me, like Harris, he's number one. But what does that mean in New England? It doesn't mean a whole lot, right? You still got a ton of people behind them, and so I don't think it's as valuable. So that's my argument.
The one thing that they have said is Belichick is smart. If you've looked at how Belichick is using Mac Jones, they said that he's always putting him in a position to win. I think a majority of the third downs he's in, they were saying he's usually in third or fourth or less. So which means that to make that third down, he doesn't have to do much, right? And so they said that's one of the genius of Belichick is the fact that he's been able to put Mac Jones in a position where every time he does it, goes into third down, he's able to get that third down and go into first, right? And so that's one of the reasons why I think for me, I've been hesitating for this year for Damien Harris is they need a Damien Harris to be able to offload some of the pressure off of Mac Jones. But if it's a dynasty league, I anticipate that next year, Elliott's not going to be on the Cowboys.
Jet, let's go back to matchups as well, too. You talked about Bengals versus Steelers, right? So in your opinion, if Steelers, would you still continue to play Najee Harris? That's number one. Are you playing all three Bengals wide receivers, Chase, Boyd, and Higgins this week?
So I like Chase and Chase and Higgins. Boyd is high. It'll be interesting to see if it's a shootout. That's what I'm not sure of. I think Cincinnati is going to win, but whether or not it's like this offensive battle, it might be a defensive battle. Like I said, the Bengals, their defense, don't sleep on their defense. They made a lot of improvements this season, and I think that's the strength of the team, really. So, no, I guess I would say I'd really only play the top two wide receivers. On the Steelers side with Najee Harris, I'm tempted to say I wouldn't start him. If you have another option, I think I would go with that.
Yeah. See, I think I disagree on that. I actually think that Najee Harris, I actually think the Steelers might be smart and they're going to force feed Najee Harris and start running it. And you might see them changing their offensive philosophy, that especially with how Roethlisberger is struggling too.
Yeah, that could be. I mean, just like that's what Tennessee did, right? So Tennessee week 2.
Yeah, look at Derrick. Yeah,
they fed Derrick Henry. So you're right. If they do that, great. Then maybe that changes the game. But like I said, it'll be interesting to see Harris versus the Cincinnati defense because I think they could stand up to that. But we'll see.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Jim. Bears versus Browns. With the Browns, a lot of times Odell Beckham is iffy as well too. Besides Nick Chubbs, are you starting anyone on the Browns? And also with the Bears, I mean, Fields is starting for the thing. What does that say about Allen Robinson?
So for the Browns, here's the thing: is if I have Kareem Hunt, I'm going to start Kareem Hunt as well as also Nick Chubb. The other person I would really consider is an Austin Hooper. Last week, actually, when all the receivers were out, Austin Hooper was actually the one who was targeted the most by in the system. And so if I had him as a tight end, I actually would really consider starting him. I would not touch outside of Montgomery. I'm not touching any of the Bears for now because I just want to see how Justin Fields does. I actually think he will do well. My guess is he'll score at least 1 or 2 touchdowns because in the last 2 games, Cleveland has allowed at least 1 passing touchdown from their quarterback. So I anticipate him to have 2 touchdowns. I do think Robinson's going to have a better game. I do think that Mooney's going to have a good game, but I'm going to wait a couple of weeks for them. But I do think Montgomery, Hunt, and Hooper are people you want to start along with the Chubb.
Who do you think is going to win?
I actually think the Bears are going to win. You know, Nagy keeps saying, oh, you know, Dalton's going to get the job when he comes back. Dalton's not going to get the job when he comes back. Fields has got it. And all he needs to do is get a couple wins, throw a couple 100 yards, get a couple touchdowns and wins. He'll be fine. He'll keep this job.
The Browns are 7.5-point favorites, so I'll just say that I do like the Bears because I don't think the Browns will cover.
No.
And I do think that Fields could surprise. So we all saw Fields throws a beautiful ball. If you get him time, he throws a much cleaner ball than Dalton. And so I think you could see Allen Robinson especially. I think he could really benefit from the accuracy.
Okay, so here's a sleeper, right? And it's just somebody to watch out for, but Marquis Goodwin. In the last game that Fields played in, which is last week, he threw 5 balls to Mooney, 5 balls to Robinson, and 4 balls to Goodwin. So I actually think Goodwin's going to – and he's a speedster. He's going to go downfield, and Fields is going to go after him.
Yeah. Now, my argument, my prediction at least is the offensive line for the Bears is going to continue to struggle. So you're going to walk away with the game saying he didn't have enough time to throw, but man, did you see his legs? And he ran and really did really well and also beat the coverage through that. So I think a lot of times you're going to see his legs really show.
So I've got Fields and Tannehill. Would you guys start Fields over Tannehill?
No, I start Tannehill. All
right.
Yeah.
All right, Jed, Ravens versus Lions. Hey, look, I would say this before you talk about Ravens versus Lions. Another guy that was on 1 year too early is TJ Hawkinson. I said, forget it. You know what? I'm going to go with Jonnu Smith. TJ Hawkinson is about the same thing as Jonnu Smith. Boy, is he doing so well this year.
Oh, man, Hawkinson has looked great. But you know what? It's because it's Jared Goff, because Goff is the check down king. He's just doing all this like little dinks and dunks. That's why DeAndre Swift as well. It's a major problem, though, for Detroit. If you look at the top 2 pass catchers, it's Hawkinson and then Swift. They have no wide receivers. So the defenses are going to be all over that. I think Baltimore comes out. That was a great win for them to get their first win against the Chiefs. I think they're going to continue to roll on. They're 8-point favorites here. I think they can cover against Detroit. I think Detroit is in a world of hurt. We'll see. We'll see what happens.
Okay, before you say anything, let me tell you, one of your favorite players, Mark Andrews. Are you trading him? Are you just not starting him anymore? What do you think?
Honestly, I was so I picked up Hollywood Brown, just so you guys know. I feel like the Ravens.
They've been targeting him. They've been looking for him.
I feel like the Ravens passing offense is finally coming around a little bit. So if you've got Andrews, I would say hold on. I don't think I would want to trade him just yet because I feel like the Ravens, if they win another couple games here, they could be the strong team that you want to, hook your fantasy hopes to.
I really think, Tyson Williams has actually been this year's James Robinson. And I actually think when it's all said and done, he'll be one of the top 10 running backs for this fantasy season. And I think you're right. Marquise Brown, they'd be going after him. Now, whether or not he's going to catch those balls, that's a different question whatsoever. But they're going to need to find a third person after those 2 players. And you're hoping it's Mark Andrews, but right now he's just disappeared from the offense.
Yeah. Jim, let's go over the Saints and Patriots. Besides Alvin Kamara, they're playing against Bill Belichick and the Patriots. You're not starting Jameis Winston. You're not starting Callaway. You're not starting anyone besides Alvin Kamara. Patriots, you were talking about Jacoby Myers, Nelson Aguilar. Thoughts on that matchup?
So I still think that, I was really high on Winston, and I still think there's a small chance he can still recover, but I see him as this year's Cam Newton. He just hasn't done well. And I think this week is a really, really tough matchup against Belichick and the Patriots. I think they're going to go hard after him. They're going to run and blitz him every time. I think Winston's going to make some bad mistakes. They're going to have to try to figure out how to get Kamara going, because last week he only scored like 6 fantasy points. And so they're going to have to figure out a way to get them. Otherwise, they're going to have to bring in a new quarterback, Taysom Hill, most likely, to end up coming in. For the Patriots, I think the Patriots usually have the same thing, right? Mac Jones will throw like somewhere between 180 to 200 yards. They're going to score like 2 touchdowns. Damien Harris is going to score rush for 90 yards. James White is pertinent. And then you've got either Jacoby Myers or Nelson Aguilar. Nothing sexy, but if you need some consistent points, they're there for you.
The one I'll throw in, you didn't mention on the Saints, Juwan Johnson, the tight end / wide receiver.
Yeah.
You need a flyer this week. For example, if you've got Mark Andrews, maybe you sit Andrews and you play Juwan Johnson. I think he could have a good another good outing, because if you watch the game, the guy is huge, and he's just this giant target for Winston, who has accuracy issues. I feel like he then, someone like Johnson is perfect for him. He can just throw with a big radius into that area.
So here's a sleeper, Jed, Tom. Taysom Hill is out there in almost 80% of the leagues in fantasy. Are you going to potentially pick him up? Because you're right, the Saints have a great offensive lineup. They're just not using them right now. And I actually can see them, if Winston has a couple more bad games, if this game is bad and next week is bad, they're going to go to Taysom Hill.
Oh, you're on.
Hey, let's go over to Cardinals versus Jaguars on this next one. I think a lot of times James Robinson, you're not starting James Robinson anymore. And then also Cardinals, talk to me about Rondale Moore.
Oh yeah, Rondale Moore, big pickup for the week. I still like Christian Kirk. I know Rondale Moore has been targeted a lot. I have him. I picked him up. You just got to see, but I like both of them. I like the card. This is the key week. If there's a ton of hype around Kyler Murray right now, you guys know I've got Kyler Murray. I love the guy. He's from Oklahoma. But I think this is the key week. Like, if you're going to show that you have this great production, you've got to be able to do it when you're expected to win. And they're expected to win here. They're 7.5-point favorites. So I want to see Kyler Murray dominate and win this game. And then I'll really buy into the Kyler Murray. I mean, they're putting him up there as MVP, right? Like, when they're talking about MVP candidates, he's one of the main guys. So this is the week. You got to prove it.
Mm-hmm. But remember, last year he had a strong first half as well too, and he fizzled out towards the end. So I'm hoping that they've learned from that. But I'm a believer in Rondale Moore before Christian Kirk. Yeah, Trevor Lawrence, by the way,
non-dynasty formats. Trevor Lawrence, are you dropping him?
Oh, yeah, I think you have to at this point. I think they said after the first 2 weeks, he's the lowest rated quarterback of all starting quarterbacks. So I think maybe you have to say it's going to take a little bit for him to pick it up. We talked about Joe Burrows is out there. If people are dropping him, there's I like what is this, Tyler Heineke in Washington. I think the guy could Taylor. I think the guy could turn out okay. So yeah, there's options I would take over Trevor Lawrence.
But I'll tell you this: you know who the best fantasy player on the Jaguars is? Marvin Jones.
Yeah, he's been doing well.
Right? I was like, Marvin Jones. If you need somebody who's going to get you 14 to 15 consistent points, he's actually pretty good for that.
Yeah, and the argument for why Marvin Jones is actually Darrell Bevo is offensive coordinator. He was the same offensive coordinator when Marvin Jones did so well in those years over at Detroit. So a lot of times they're familiar with each other during that time. Mm-hmm. All right, Jim, Washington football team against the Buffalo Bills. Logan Thomas, are you starting him? And also the one person, Zach Moss. Last week had 2 touchdowns. Mm-hmm. Devin Singletary continues to get the yardage, but Zach Moss gets the goal line.
Okay, let me say this. I think Jed, you said a couple of times that Tommy was ahead by a year in picking his players. Last year, he kept going after Daniel Jones, and he kept going after Kenny Galladay. Tom, who was the other person you kept going after last year who's doing really good?
Kenyon Drake, yeah.
Oh, Kenyon Drake, right? So Dan, just some of them are doing great. This year, he keeps going after Antonio Gibson and all these Washington guys. He's in last place because of that. I still think Gibson will do well, but I am really disappointed in how Washington is handling themselves. Outside of McLaren, Logan Thomas has not broken 10 points. Gibson, I don't even know if he's scored a touchdown yet because they keep going after McKissick. And so even though Heineke has done really well, it's almost like, okay, when are they going to fall apart, and who are they without Ryan Fitzpatrick? So that's where my concern is. But I do think they have a great defense. On the other side, the Buffalo Bills, Devin Singletary is still the number one running back, but I still have a belief in Zach Moss.
Hey, what about Stefan Diggs, man? Diggs has not produced this year. I have him on one team, and I've been so disappointed. In fact, my oldest son was just talking about dropping him. I am not dropping him. I'm waiting to see. I'm hoping this game he blows up. But, yeah, I have concerns there because, man, I drafted Diggs really high. In fact, I think he might have been my first-round pick for that one. But, yeah, I agree with you. The Washington team, that's been one of the big disappointments this year. Similar to our discussion about Pittsburgh, I hope they figure out to feed the ball to Gibson. Gibson can handle the load. If they could figure that out, that takes the pressure off Heineke, and then I think you're okay. I think the one thing we did learn, though, is McLaren is good no matter what.
Yeah.
Like, you're fine. If you've got McLaren, you're set.
He's actually a really good wide receiver.
Oh, he's excellent. That one catch he had on the sideline, it's like one of the catches of the year. But the person we're worried about is Logan Thomas. I think Logan Thomas really needs this offense to get a little bit more balance, get more of that running game in there, and then hopefully we'll see him come around. But Thomas has definitely been, and quite honestly, I talked about Juwan Johnson. I would play Juwan Johnson even over Thomas at this point because he just hasn't produced.
Yeah.
Hey, look, I'm saying I'm 0-2 a lot of leagues because I am stacked with Washington football team players, all right? So it has not gone as well for me, but I have high hopes. Jed, a couple more. Jets versus Broncos. I want to talk about Courtland Sutton. I love Courtland Sutton. Talk to me about Courtland Sutton.
Oh, I know. I'm so mad about this one because, he didn't look good and he was coming off of the injury and, preseason and even week one, I was like, oh, it's not Courtland Sutton. It's Patrick. And so I was the one and Jerry Jeudy. I was one of the ones who went after Jeudy over Sutton, and now Sutton's making me pay. He looks great. And so if you were able to get on that, stick with him. I think, there's going to be a lot of points there for you. On the Jets side, you guys know, Corey Davis, I was up on that. It's been a little uneven, but you got to expect that with the Jets, with Zach Wilson, the new quarterback, rookie quarterback. But I think the points can still be there. There's garbage time points. And so I'm not giving up on Corey Davis. I've still got him starting in a couple of my lineups.
Okay.
And here's a trivia. What?
Here's a trivia. Who is the top two receivers after the first 2 weeks of NFL season this year in terms of yardage? Number one, Courtland Sutton. Number two, Tyler Lockett. Who would have known? Lockett, Courtland Sutton, and Tyler Lockett. Those two.
Yeah. Lockett always, I'm telling you guys, he has a great start to the season. If I was a Lockett owner personally, I'd be looking to trade him right now. I'd be looking to get maximum value out of him. If you could make a trade for him for, let's say, like Devontae Adams or some high tier someone, or even a DK Metcalf, I would trade Lockett. I would take Metcalf over Lockett at this point. So I don't know. I just don't trust the guy. He always has good seasons where he has a couple games he catches 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, Jim, Dolphins versus Raiders. Your thoughts on that?
I want to see how Derek Carr does. I mean, I picked up Henry Ruggs over Chuba Hubbard, and I actually want to see how they do. I'm not a believer in the running game. I don't think Kenyon Drake or Peyton Barber is going to do much, but I do want to see, is Henry Ruggs or Brian Edwards going to be able to step in as that number 2 receiver behind Darren Waller? So that's really what I'm watching. And is Derek Carr going to continue his streak as one of the top quarterbacks? I don't think he is. I think the first two games he's thrown for close to 900 yards total. I just don't think that he can keep it up. But there are some people who says, look, he's in his 8th year now with the Raiders. Maybe he's figured it out. I don't know what it is. So I think that's what I'm paying attention to.
He's looked great. And I will say Waller, I was having some doubts about Waller, but man, Waller has looked awesome. That's another person that I missed. Yep. I mean, I thought he'd be top 10, but he's looking top 5, maybe top 3. So if you have him, just continue riding him. I think the Raiders are, like I said, one of the surprises. People don't remember they lost half of their offensive line. So I was like, okay, there's no way they're going to be able to gel that quickly and protect their car. Offensive line has been fine. The offense has been running fine. So if you've got Raiders, play them.
4 more games, and then I want to go through matchups and also a quick true and false as well too. Talk to me about Seahawks and Vikings, Jed.
Seahawks and Vikings, get all your players in. I'm expecting fireworks. Should be a lot of points. And, Justin Jefferson has been kind of up and down a little bit. Not, again, as great as we'd hope. But especially if Dalvin Cook watch the news. If he is out in any way, watch him to, expect them to throw the ball a little bit more, especially because they got to keep up with Seattle. I expect Seattle to still, their offense is really clicking. The passing offense is really clicking. I get all of your skill players in there for both teams.
Minnesota, it always seems like the number 2 wide receiver does well. Last year, Thielen was number 1. Justin Jefferson did really well. This year, Jefferson's number 1. Adam Thielen is doing exceptionally well. So a lot of times, pay attention to those matchups. Jim, Buccaneers versus Rams in the 3:30 game.
I actually think so. I think you're going to see Tom Brady continue his streak. I actually think that you're going to see touchdowns again from Godwin, from Evans. It'll be interesting whether or not Gronk is going to get a touchdown as well too. I think one of the things that you said, Tom, earlier is Antonio Brown is not expected to play. So I was listening to ESPN today, and they were saying if he has a negative COVID test today and tomorrow, then he can play. But they're expecting him not to play. But there is a slight chance that he might still be able to play. And I think I think you're going to get another good game from Cooper Kupp, and I'm hoping that Robert Woods will end up having another good game. The one person I'm watching for from a waiver wire potential pickup, I'm watching Van Jefferson, because I actually think that he could potentially be a 3rd receiver that they could utilize.
See, I was thinking maybe like Gerald Everett, the tight end out there. So that's interesting. You said that. Tommy, I bet one of
in Seattle now. It's the
who's the Higbee. Yeah. Tommy, I bet one of your true falses is going to be, is Gronk going to be a top 10 tight end this season? Because he's had 4 touchdowns in 2 games, right? So the question is, can he continue this even if he goes down to 1 touchdown, can he keep this pace up? I think that's a tough question.
Did you see that he kind of got in trouble on the Monday Night Football broadcast? So I guess they were talking to the Manning brothers, and the Manning brothers says, "So Gronk, how much do you prepare?" And he's like, "I usually don't prepare. I just go out there and I ask Tom what they were going to do, and I go do it." And then he had to go back and retract it. And then he did say the Manning brothers always get him in trouble because they always make him say dumb things that he regrets later on.
I don't think you have to do anything to make Gronk say dumb things. You just ask him questions, and that happens.
All right, the greatest joy of I had to get up at 4 a.m. this week during the waiver wire because Gronk was on waivers in one of my leagues. I got him. I was so happy that I got Gronk on waivers.
So you're starting him?
Yeah.
Okay, so everyone remember.
Over Logan Thomas? Yeah.
Okay, so Gronk's going to have a bad Sunday, guys. Tommy put him in, so just be warned.
Hey, a couple more. Jed, Packers versus 49ers, and then Jim, Eagles versus Cowboys. So
Packers, 49ers. This is a fun game to think about, right? I mean, 49ers defense has been keeping them in, had a strong outing last week. I think 49ers are 3-point favorites. Packers, boy, it's hard to tell. Yes, they won, but it wasn't necessarily that pretty. They weren't leading at the half last week. So, it's hard to tell with the Packers if this is the start of the demise of Aaron Rodgers, or if he's just been a little rusty and he's going to turn things around. So as far as your players, though, I'm definitely sticking with Aaron Rodgers, Aaron Jones, Devontae Adams. I put all 3 of those guys in. On the San Francisco side, if Trey Sermon is available, I like him as a play. Yes. Yep, I like him as a pickup and a play. And of course, Deebo Samuels, right? Samuels is not the one out, right?
Ayuk is out.
Yeah, Samuels has been amazing. So I would, stick
Yeah.
with Samuels as well.
Deebo Samuel has been great. Hey, speaking about that, Jimmy was in one of our leagues playing against our friend Arnold. It came down to Devontae Adams against Aaron Jones. I said, you know what? Adams probably won against. Who knew Aaron Jones would get you 4 touchdowns?
Oh, he went nuts. That was insane.
And after the first half, he only had 2 touchdowns. I was like, okay, Adam, I'm still within 10 points. Adams can make it up. He scored 2 more touchdowns. I was already out.
There was a story on ESPN. There was a guy who was down 110 points to 30 points, but he had DeAndre Swift, Aaron Rodgers,
Aaron
Jones, and he won.
And he won. Yeah. Fantasy is hilarious. That's why you can never give up. You just never know.
Jim, last one. Eagles versus Cowboys.
CeeDee Lamb will do well. I am really going to pay attention to Tony Pollard and how he does, because I do think that if he outrushes and outplays Ezekiel Elliott, he's somebody for you to really target in some of these trade markets here in the next few weeks. I actually think Dak Prescott surprisingly didn't have that good of a game last week. Like the first week he had a great game. The second week he just didn't do too well. So I'm hoping that he'll bounce back. But I do think CeeDee Lamb, and I expect Tony Pollard to do well for this game.
I would pick. I think the Eagles play the Cowboys well. They always have good games. I know they had a down week last week. I would expect a bounce back from Jalen Hurts. If you've got Devonta Smith, I'd put him in. I think this is a week to see a little bit more offensive output. I still like Miles Sanders. I know it hasn't been consistent, but I think this is a game where you can see points there. So I would get my Philadelphia Eagle players in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Got it. Hey, let's do a couple of true and false. And Jed, I'm going to start with the first one. You said it. I'll each ask you guys true or false. You guys pick the one that you want, and we'll do this really fast. Jed, Rob Gronkowski will continue to be a top 10 tight end each week, as you had predicted that I would ask. True or false?
I'll say true.
Really? I'll say false. I don't think he can keep it up.
He said top 10. If he had said top 5, I would have said false. But top 10, I think he's a
starter.
Oh,
yeah, top 10. Yeah, that's true. Okay,
I think he's a starter for the rest of the year.
Yeah.
Yep.
Jim, Tony Pollard will eventually split carries each week with Ezekiel Elliott and be the better running back to own fantasy-wise.
True. That's why I'm going to try to target him in all my teams.
He's already doing that. He's already splitting carries with him, so it's already true.
But some people think that it's because they're trying to give Ezekiel Elliott some rest. But I do think that Pollard's a better running back than Elliott right now.
Jed, Damien Harris will continue to be the primary ball carrier in New England and will get the majority of the carries.
I was going to say true until you said we'll get the majority of the carries, so I'll say false.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Jim?
I think false as well, too. I do think that you've got James White out there. Now, if James White is done or absent, you still have Rashard Stevenson, who, by the way, people have been dropping. And I've been looking around trying to decide, do I pick up a Rashard Stevenson?
I have him in one league. He's an Oklahoma guy, so I like Stevenson.
Jim, Julio Jones will become the number 1 wide receiver in Tennessee.
False, because you still have A.J. Brown.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you can buy low on A.J. Brown, in fact, anyone out there in my leagues, if you want to trade me to A.J. Brown, I'll take him right now.
Jed, DK Metcalf was drafted too high this year.
I'm going to say false. His average draft position was, I thought, too low, so I'm going to say false.
But, okay, think about it. I would think about this year. If we were to go back again and you drafted Kelsey, Waller, Cooper Kupp, and a David Montgomery, you'd be in like first place right now.
Yeah, but this is also week 2, guys. We all know that you don't win off of just week 2. So,
yeah.
Jim, Calvin Ridley will not be a top 5 wide receiver this year.
False. I still think that he will be a top 5.
Agree.
Got it. Jed, Stefan Diggs is the biggest bust this year.
Not biggest. No, I don't think he's the biggest bust, but he has been a bust so far. I'll agree with that, but not biggest.
Mm-hmm.
But biggest bust in terms of draft position. He was probably in your end of your first round, beginning of second round, though, right?
Yeah. What about Saquon Barkley? What about look, even Christian McCaffrey? If McCaffrey is out for 4 weeks, there's no way he should have been number one.
Yes, if McCaffrey is going to be out for a few weeks, he's sliding down the polls.
So my oldest son was just telling me in his league they were making fun of the guy who had the number one pick because he picked Henry over McCaffrey. If you look at that now, that's looking pretty smart.
Yeah. But okay, you can't. I mean, but look at how many touches McCaffrey had in the first 2 games. That guy was like all over the place. He's all over the place. When he's playing, he is good.
All right, let's go through some matchups real fast, Jim. If you had a chance, Ryan Tannehill, David Carr, Jameis Winston, who are you starting?
Ryan Tannehill. I'm taking a chance on Tannehill.
Agree.
Jed, Michael Pittman or Jalen Waddle?
Pittman.
No, I choose Waddle.
Jim.
Who's throwing Waddle
Jim,
the ball?
Sony
That's
Michel.
the problem.
Jim, Sony Michel, Saquon Barkley, or Kenyon Drake?
I'm going to roll the dice one more week on Saquon Barkley. I do. My hope is that this week is when he'll start ramping it up. So Barkley.
Definitely.
Jed, Chase Claypool, or Rondell Moore?
Rondell Moore.
Yeah, Rondell Moore.
Jim, Cortland Sutton, or Jamar Chase?
Cortland Sutton.
Oh, Sutton, yeah.
Yeah, you got to roll. You got to keep on going with Cortland Sutton.
Yep.
All right, let's go back to another Michael Pittman on this one. Marvin Jones or Michael Pittman? Jed?
Oh, maybe Marvin Jones. Yeah.
Marvin Jones. Yeah.
Yep. Jim, Rob Gronkowski or Kyle Pitts?
I hate to say Pitts, but I would go with Gronk.
No.
It's a Tom Brady effect.
Yeah.
You got to go with Gronk.
I'm sticking with Pitts, man. His targets have increased each week, so I'm expecting it again. Pitts is going to break
but
out,
like you said, Jed. I mean, yards are great, but touchdowns mean so much more, and Gronk is getting those touchdowns.
Yeah, the problem I think this year is Matt Ryan, Ben Roethlisberger. I think this is the year they're gone. Drew Brees finally got out. They're all in that same category. It's time for them to move on.
Yep, here is your third wide receiver tier. Jed, Kenny Galladay or Nelson Aguilar?
I'm gonna go with Galladay just because I think the Giants are gonna, put up points this week.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Jim. Here's 4. All right, I need 4 for one of the 4. Elijah Mitchell, James Robinson, Tyson Williams, or Tony Pollard?
Ooh.
Oh,
between the last two.
Yeah, Tyson Williams and Tony Pollard.
Yeah.
I'll go with Tyson Williams over Tony Pollard because he's a starter.
Yeah. I totally agree. If you watch it, I think by the end of the year they're going to be featuring him much more than Murray. I know Murray's gotten in there, but Tyson Williams, if you've watched him, he has looked much better than Murray.
Yeah.
Yep. Last one: Melvin Gordon or Damien Harris?
Melvin Gordon. No, I choose Damien Harris. Because last week, if you look, Williams from Denver, he had him and Gordon had pretty much evenly split the carries. I can see Williams becoming the featured back.
Got it. Hey, last question before we wrap up. Detroit, we all know about Hockenson. We know about DeAndre Swift. Any of you guys like Quentin Cephas? So far, he's been the best wide receiver.
No.
I
know. Honestly, I'm worried about Hockenson. If I'm being really honest, if you have Hockenson, you can enjoy it, but I'm worried that it's going to disappear because the defenses are going to figure out that Jared Goff cannot throw beyond 10 yards. And if they figure that out, I don't know what happens to the offense. So
you know who I worry about? I worry about Swift. Swift is not the strongest player. He's always getting injured. And so for me, if Jamal Williams is out there, he's a guy you want to pick up because he's a bigger back, and I think he's at least more sturdy than Swift is.
Yeah, that's not a bad thought.
Yeah.
Got it. Hey, what about KJ Osborne? He's that third wide receiver. Have you guys been paying attention to KJ Osborne?
Yeah, he's the third guy behind Adam Thielen as well as also Justin Jefferson.
Oh.
Yeah, so he's actually done pretty well this year. He's somebody that you might want to look at.
He's done very well.
Yeah. You just got to hope there's no
he
COVID
is
up
ninth
there
in yards.
Yeah. I mean,
right.
Rondell Moore. Rondell Moore.
So far, Jed. Jed, so far, Cousins has not gotten himself COVID so far, so he's been doing pretty well.
It's only 2 weeks in, guys. I don't know about you all. My kids, I've got 4 kids at home in school, and every single week we have gotten an email. Oh, somebody in 1st grade got COVID. Oh, somebody in 4th grade got COVID. Oh, someone in 5th grade. Every single week. I think it's only a matter of time.
All right. We are exactly at the 1 hour mark. Thank you. And we will talk on Tuesday morning after the Monday Night Football game. All right. See